Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street, presented by Plaza Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Here is Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel, Gary Vickery, and I'm your host, Lisa Melmed. Hello and good morning. How's everybody doing today?
Good morning, Lisa. Good to be here. Nice to see you, Gary. Looking sharp as always. Nice tie.
It's great. It's great to be here right after Labor Day, ready to start September.
Yeah. Nice busy weekend coming up downtown. Well, we had really the busiest weekend since we reopened, which was nice. It was the first time it felt like starting to get back to pre-pandemic levels with all the precautions in place, of course.
Very nice. Well, okay, so let's talk about downtown dining. My favorite restaurant is Esther's Kitchen. What about you, Jonathan?
You know it. Well, obviously
well, besides the Plaza, of course.
Those not inside the Plaza. We just ordered lunch from Esther's Kitchen, actually. We just got out to go order, which is ironic because we're joined here today by the man who should be making it, I guess. So I don't know who's making the lunch.
Today we're joined by chef and owner of Esther's Kitchen, James Trees. Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street.
Well, thank you for having me. And Jonathan, thank you for inviting me to come up to this beautiful restaurant here at Oscar's and be a part of this. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been doing this now for a couple of months, and we're really just trying to, create a more awareness, introduce different people that we hang out with, places we like to go in Las Vegas, downtown, and with no particular focus, but when we get to talk about great things happening downtown, that is our sweet spot. That's where we like to be. So thank you for being one of those brightest spots, definitely in the downtown area, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Esther's Kitchen is located downtown in the Arts District, and it became an overnight sensation. I remember going there, and it was fine to get in, and then one day I called to make a reservation for that night, and the guy on the phone was like, do you know who we are? This is Esther's Kitchen. Like, you can't come in tonight.
I would really like to hope that we did not say that. What we like to say is like, we'd love to get you in at 10:30. That's the move.
That's the right answer.
Yeah, because when the Smith Center is operational and running, our 5 o'clocks are just completely booked. We do basically a turn and a half before we really start to hit dinner service. We are so lucky to be in the heart of the Arts District and just a part of that neighborhood and watching it develop the same way you guys are watching Circa go up around you. I'm watching this neighborhood just evolve and become more modern and seeing all these great things happening. And I love downtown for such an important reason is because I'm from Vegas. I was growing up before there was a strip. I tell people all the time that growing up in Vegas was growing up in a town of 50,000 people, and they don't understand that. Mm-mm. Like it was a little western town.
What year was that? Not to age you, but I am curious.
I just turned 40 a couple weeks ago.
Oh, happy birthday!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I'm very, very old. And it was interesting because that was 1980, and I remember looking out from our backyard. We lived on Mountain Vista in Vegas Valley. And you could see all the way to Sunrise Mountain. Not one house was there. Like we were at the end. Like there was nothing past Nellis. And then if you look to the west, I remember that Eastern used to be the divide of Las Vegas from east to west. Mm-hmm. If you were on Vegas Boulevard, this was the west side. Like to go to the Tropicana was to go across town. Now it's a 10-minute, in the car kind of thing. And just watching that little town turn into this beautiful city of 2.5 million people and watching it just gain prosperity has been amazing, even when I was gone in LA for a while.
So I think that's something interesting that I mentioned before we started was I always just assumed or thought that you were a big chef from California that had moved out to Vegas to do this. Embarrassingly, I didn't know your history until I started, researching you a little bit. And I guess it's interesting if you could share with us sort of how you learned your culinary skills in Las Vegas, growing up here, being born and raised here, which I think a lot of people don't realize that this is your hometown.
Right. My restaurant journey has kind of been just being in the right place at the right time and the willingness to adapt to whatever the situation was. I started cooking when I was 15 years old. I took a high school culinary class. Basically, I chased a girl into a thing, and she decided not to show up, and I got caught there, and they threw a book at me in his cookbook. I was like, this is awesome. And I started doing that for about 2 years as part of like my high school education because my mom was a teacher. I didn't, I was basically done with my credits, so I didn't really need to be in school, but my mom wanted me to be, so I ended up doing this culinary class and I fell in love with it. And then I really worked really hard to get an internship at the Mirage. This is 1997, before Bellagio opened. So it was a really interesting time because it was right before that giant explosion of celebrity chefs that kind of overtook Las Vegas and has driven its culinary purpose for about the last 20 years. And I was right at the grassroots of that. So like if it was a Thomas Keller restaurant, Thomas Keller was in the kitchen every day. If it was a Michael Mina restaurant, Michael was in the kitchen every day. If it was, I worked for Todd English, and our executive chef at the time was Luke Palladino. When you're 17 and you walk in, and
by the way, I'm very excited to hear that Olives is coming back to town.
Yeah, I mean,
like making a comeback.
It's great because I've actually reconnected with Todd. Him coming into the restaurant for brunch a couple times.
Oh, nice.
He really, because I really take the sensibilities of what he did 20 years ago, and I take that to the neighborhood level with Esther's every single day. We do a little bit of different technique and different stuff, like we make all the pasta and we do all the bread. We do all these things that no restaurant for our size should be doing. But the craft and level that he inspired me from at Olives back in the 90s and the 2000s, and the way he built his business to a worldwide empire is amazing. I think Richard Branson bringing him back is kind of awesome. But the sleeper restaurant at the Virgin is going to be Night Market.
Oh yeah?
Oh, Night Market's my favorite restaurant on the West Coast.
That's from California?
So it's from the original one, Chris Young, his last name's super hard to say, Chris. It's like Young Boom or something like that. But his parents had a restaurant called Talisai. He kind of they went on vacation and he ripped half of it up and turned it into another restaurant. Okay. And he started serving Thai street food. No numbers, you don't get to choose how hot things are. So the pad thai and the papaya salad will blow your face off.
Is it spicy?
So spicy, so ridiculous. I know you don't do it. Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah, but there are things on that menu that if he brings, he does a beef tendon Penang, which is the heel of the shin of the beef, and he does that in a Penang sauce with homemade roti. It's some of the best food I've ever eaten, and the most inspired food I had in Los Angeles for years.
How great. Yeah, where is it in Los Angeles? Because I'd never been to it.
He's got a couple different ones. I think he's up to 3 now, but he has the original one, which is on Sunset Doheny, right next to the Roxy. Okay. Which is
It's called Night Market?
Yeah, it's called Night plus Market.
I saw that in the Virgin announcement, and I actually liked their lineup. I thought they had some good stuff there.
Smart. Very smart lineup.
But I did not know that Night plus Market was as great as you're telling me, so I'm excited for that.
It is the sleeper restaurant coming to Vegas in a long time, and I really hope that it echoes the original sentiment of the original restaurant. Then he opened a restaurant in Silver Lake called Night Market Som. Okay. And that was more of just I don't really like the hipster thing, but yeah, it's a totally hipster vibe kind of place. And then he actually took over one of my favorite kind of crappy old Chinese takeout places on Lincoln Boulevard and turned it into his third restaurant where he's doing updated versions of Chinese American classics. He does a crab rangoon with real crab, stuff like that. It's really smart and thoughtful kind of looks at stuff. But I think him coming should be a bigger story than Todd coming back.
Okay, fine, yeah. I didn't know enough about it, but I was excited about Olives, but now I'm more excited for that.
We'll go.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure that because I'll order towers of Chang beer and make sure that we have a great time.
Okay. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
So, James, what year did you come back to Vegas?
I came back in 2016 when I signed my lease. I actually signed the lease for Esther's before I had the money together and before I did everything wrong in opening that restaurant. But in 2016, I came back and...
if you don't mind though, James, sorry. You went from the Mirage in 97.
Yeah.
Where you were just about to be part of this explosion of celebrity chefs. Right. I didn't, and I think for the sake of our listeners,
Yeah, with some continuity.
Yeah, yeah. Where did you go between 97 and 2016?
So
I think that's
everywhere.
Where,
So I had a really, really cool path. My dad always told me that if you learn a trade like cooking, you can go anywhere in the world and have a job. And so I did. And so basically from there, I got an internship at the Mirage. Did 2 years there. I worked
was Steve Wynn the owner of the Mirage?
Steve Wynn was the owner.
Did you have any interactions?
Actually, I've had more interactions with Mr. Wynn since he's left.
Okay.
Actually, like just lately, he was a regular Ada's, just a wonderful human being to be around. And he's kind of funny it's funny that he says he's rediscovering Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Ada's is your restaurant in Tivoli Village.
And we're gonna be reopening that shortly as a wine bar because we have to move our Italian because we just took over the Brio and now we're gonna do Scuola Vecchia over there. So that's gonna be a big, giant restaurant, fun thing to do, and we're looking forward to doing that. But I did Onda with Todd English, which is like his second restaurant from Olives, and I got to work right in between Luke Palladino and Alex Strada for 2 years. I did that, and then I went to CIA in New York. And then I went to CIA. It was a great experience. I don't like the cold. I don't like New York. It's too cold there for me. So I left, and I worked at Le Bernardin shortly in there with Eric Repair and Jasper and those guys, and that was a great, fun time. And I came back to Vegas and worked for Michael Mina at Aqua.
Okay. I did know that you worked in England for a little bit as well, didn't you?
I went to the Fat Duck, and yes, I worked there as long as I could until I got deported.
Oh,
yeah, because apparently there's this thing called the J1 visa you're supposed to have,
right,
and that's like paperwork, and I'm not big on paperwork.
How did you get deported? What happened?
It's actually kind of funny. I was working there, and they just kind of like took us all outside and like lined us up and pointed us and went, "You and you, come here. You got papers." They're like their version of INS. Pulled like 30 stages out of the kitchen, and we're like, "You and you," and I was like, "Okay, cool." And the other guy's like, "Yeah, I have my papers." I'm like, "Fuck."
Back to the U.S.
So they literally took my passport from me, and I got to wear handcuffs all the way back to Philadelphia. That was fun.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
Was the flight free?
It was free. That was very nice of them. Actually, I'm pretty sure I didn't get my points on that flight. So.
Oh, man.
For anyone that doesn't know, the Fat Duck is one of the more famous restaurants in London, outside of London.
Outside London in Bray. And in that area is just stunningly stark and gorgeous. And it is England. I don't know how if you weren't born there, why would you? I've talked to Gordon Ramsay about this, and he says there's a reason why they call it blighty. Like, it's miserable. It's bone-chilling cold. Like, it's so cold. It's not like, because I'm from a dry, hot place, it is the opposite of that, right?
Yeah, why do you think I'm here?
Oh, dude, so because you're smart. Man, I just tell you, it's like, I really would love to go to England for 3 days in the summer. And then I'll be like, all right, that's enough. I'll go to Spain, like where all the English people go. They go to Spain.
Right, true.
Yeah.
True, not this summer, but yes, normally.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But yeah, no. How did you end up here? I don't know that story.
Well,
You'll have to listen to episode 1.
I'm going to listen to episode 1.
Episode 1 of our podcast will tell you that story.
There you go.
And we'll do it over the Chang beers at Night Plus Market.
Awesome.
But tell us a little bit about when you why you chose downtown and when you were in California.
So I kind of bounced around. I did some openings with Michael Mina. I landed in San Francisco. I got to work with a very inspired chef. His name is Chris Lahamadou. I hated that guy with a passion. Fervent of 10,000 Suns.
I hope he's listening to this.
Unfortunately, he passed away.
Oh, okay. So.
Which, I mean, no, trust me. I'm not sad about it. It's horrible to say. But he was really awful to me and made me work in a dungeon with the Dragon Lady. And I was like walking around San Francisco. I lived in the Tenderloin in San Francisco, which is like the gnarliest part of San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And I just like quit my job one day and I moved to LA with no job, no prospect, no nothing. I was just like, I'm just out of here. This isn't my place. And I got to LA. And over the next 10 years, which is how long I was in LA, all my friends from San Francisco moved to LA. They came down, they saw like beaches and nice people and people who weren't struggling to get by, and the creativity and innovation in those restaurants. And it was almost the way I feel that Las Vegas is at this point, where we see this explosion of community restaurants. When I got to LA, there was only like 5 big chefs. It was like Wolfgang Puck, Michael Simorowski, Susan Goen, what's the lady, and Nancy Silverton, and probably like Governor Ben Ford. And that would be about the entire expansion of. But now, if you look at LA, it's just celebrity chef after celebrity chef after celebrity, these giant people who have just been crushing it. And the most innovative restaurants in the country for 10 years, and no one knew about it. And I got to work at a lot of great restaurants there and do some really innovative concepts and really hone my technique. And I got to, come up with all these great chefs who are just amazing and really uber talented, and they had some freedom. And then I saw, like, about 2014, 15, I started to see a change in LA, and I saw that LA was changing not for the better. Rent prices went through the roof. Like, we're talking about $4 plus a square foot for a restaurant. And I saw creativity starting to die. I started seeing my friends not be able to sustain good lives. And I saw that, like, I was down in Venice walking on the beach every day, and I saw that, like, I helped run a really successful company of 20 plus stores, and I couldn't afford to live in my neighborhood.
Wow.
It's insane, isn't it?
And I was like, you know what? I think I'm out of here. Right. And I think it was just time. Right. And,
Yeah.
and so
you were in Santa Monica? Were you living there?
I was in Venice. Yeah. Yeah. So
great.
in Santa Monica, during 2008, during when the economy collapsed, I worked at the Viceroy. That was my economic collapse job.
Yep.
So you take a hotel job, get in there, get paid, make sure everyone's happy. Right. And then when I got done working with Gordon Ramsay on Kitchen Nightmares in Hell's Kitchen, I actually bounced over to Fig and worked with Ray Garcia at Fig, and then he went on to open Broken Spanish. So I love Ray. He was a great chef to work with. I kind of ran the restaurant. He ran the hotel part of it. And in the middle of it, I brought him his money guy, and he was able to concept his restaurant and then go out on his own. And he's been very successful at that as well. And now I kind of see that, like, I'm back in Vegas, and here come all my friends from LA.
Moving to Vegas?
Yeah, all my friends from, I got my buddy Bruce out here. I got my buddy Vic out here. So I'm seeing, like, those kind of people return. And it's like, I kind of feel like I'm setting, like, where the first time I was like, oh, we're all good. Now I'm like, now I can help these guys out, make sure they're get set up properly, get good deals.
Are they living in downtown in this area, or where are they?
So Bruce is living in Summerlin, but he's going to open a restaurant downtown on Main Street.
Oh, okay.
If everything works out, he should be funded this week.
Hopefully in my Clay Arts building.
You know what? Hopefully, right? And then Vic Casanova was brought in to Umbra. Decided that the MGM culture wasn't for him, and he's moved on. And now we're trying to pull it all together to see if we can get him to work with us at Scola Vecchia. So I mean, like, we're talking about world class chefs who have, like, GQ Restaurant of the World, Restaurant of the Year kind of stuff. And I'm just bringing community oriented small restaurants to Las Vegas in a way that is very impactful for the community in which they're in. I think that's something that, like, we kind of, as Las Vegans, kind of, like, overlooked for too many years. Whereas there was a lot of flash and bang on the Strip, right? But not a lot of substance. I look at a restaurant like this and I see substance. I see history. I see care and thoughtfulness in the preparation of the room and how it was done and the timelessness of it. And I love those things.
Do you think the celebrity chef thing is now overdone in this town, or just in general?
I think in general it is, because I mean, like, I went from watching kids that couldn't stage in my restaurants go on Top Chef and end up with restaurant deals, and I was like, these kids are clowns. They don't know how to cook.
Right.
And so, like, and we saw a lot of that in fact, like, no diss to those people, but like there just became a point when they started asking me to go on Top Chef when I was like, no.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time, right? I'm not going to waste my effort to make your dumb TV show with your TV producers. And being behind the camera for a couple of years with Gordon Ramsay, you see that they're there to make a TV show.
Yep.
They do not care about who wins or what the talent level is or what the care level is. And so it's kind of like, I love GR, but I'm like, come on, man. Like, you can't say no to $150,000 an episode. So,
So how did you choose and settle on the space that you have for Esther's Kitchen on Main Street in the Arts District?
So I originally wanted the Alpine Fixtures building on Main Street. It's still vacant, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get that, and I tried to buy it from the person who actually lived on the same street as me in Venice. And he actually had an illness and lost it to the bank over, I think, like $8,000 or something like that in like back property taxes. And the people who came in and bought it, and for, I think it was $800,000 total, right? Mm-hmm. I could have bought that building for $800,000 and now sure can't.
Yeah.
But I lost it. I didn't get to him in time. So then I was walking down Main Street and I saw antique stores, fun bars, coffee shops. And I'm like, where in this neighborhood do people eat? Mm-hmm. And the answer was nowhere, right? So I walked around the corner and I saw the two beautiful old school graffiti pieces on the side of my building, right? And I was like, right there. I was like, that's where the restaurant should be. And I started talking to the landlord, who's great. Cameron's great and Adam are great. And they were like, well, don't you want the big side with all the windows on Casino Center? And I'm like, nope. No, I do not. I want this little awesome restaurant. I don't want too much space. I want to be able to control the rent. And
very smart.
We made a deal. It was good. It was smart. The place is smart. The way I went about funding the restaurant was a train wreck. I mean, like I thought I had money. Like, how you think you have money. Like you have like people who want to invest in you and want to see you do well. And then you ask those people for checks and they're like, you don't need me. Like you don't want my help. And I ended up taking an extra 6 months to get an SBA loan. And it ended up being that my mom had to sign her house as collateral for the loan.
Wow.
And getting her to do that was rough. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, I told myself,
stressful.
Super stressful. But I mean, it also just like, if your mom doesn't believe in you, who does, right?
Yeah, come on, Mom.
And I mean, like, 2 months into it, everyone's like, oh yeah, it's a hit. It's this, it's that. Like, they don't understand that I opened the restaurant with
what went into it?
$5,000 left in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Like, I mean, like, I had to borrow money from my sister to pay the first payroll. Like, that's how this restaurant happened. I tell people all the time that Esther's is the restaurant that should have never happened because we own all of it, right? Which is very rare when it comes to restaurants. But when you're looking at, like, the trailblazing people, and I just haphazardly third person just called myself a trailblazer, which is
it's appropriate.
It's awful. No, it's not.
It's appropriate. I'll call it.
It's never appropriate to call yourself that. Yeah, it's rule number 2.
Okay. What's number 1?
Don't die. Which means don't do anything stupid. Rule number 2 is rule number 2
don't call yourself a trailblazer.
Rule number 2 is don't break your arm jerking yourself off.
Okay, fine.
Right.
Fine.
And rule number 3.
Hold on, let me get a pen. Let me write these down.
Yeah, this is actually really important. Yeah. And then rule number 3 is being right is the dummy prize of life. Those are if you take those 3 rules, we feel that like you can 95% of the time make good decisions.
Okay.
Right.
I can definitely go along with most of them.
Yeah.
No, I can go along with all of them actually. It's pretty good.
So for some of our listeners who've never heard of your restaurant, how would you describe the restaurant?
How
would you visualize that if you were to?
It's Italian soul food. I mean, like that's really what we like try to be. We cook with the seasons. So in the style of cucina povera, which it really means just like taking something that's very humble, like pasta or polenta or something like that, and then treating it in a way that elevates it and makes it special. I love the idea of the regional classic dishes of Italy, and bringing those into the fold is kind of like where we base the menu at, and then we wrap it around different flavors and seasonal like vegetables. So we don't do chicken parm, but we do a chicken parm sandwich at lunch, right? So we don't, like, people who walk in and are expecting like an Italian restaurant. Like, well, I'm building that up at Summerlin for you guys, but like, you know, our pasta pomodoro, we use organic tomatoes from Chris Bianco. We use olive oil from California. We don't use Italian olive oil, and we don't use Italian tomatoes because we're not in Italy, right? So we just get the best quality product that's from around us, and then we treat it with respect.
And a great puttanesca.
A great puttanesca, which we will do with bucatini anytime you want it, without the Nero.
You know, it's you were joking by saying you shouldn't call yourself a trailblazer, but I think a lot of people, when they look at successful businesses of any type, they don't realize what goes into those early stages, the hours, the grind, the struggle, the challenges, and they just see the success and the line out the door and like, yeah, he's got this thing figured out. It was easy, but you know,
you were there in the early days.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, like, I'm sure you've had some rough meals at Esther's. Like, there's like one of those things like where you initially have the goodwill of so many people, and your only goal is just don't screw that up. Right? Like, you can make mistakes, but like, if I burn your pizza, I come to the table and I say, I burnt your pizza. It's not good enough. I'm going to remake it for you. Here's a salad while you guys hang out and wait. And I apologize constantly. Like, that was like literally the first 6 months of like Esther's, is me going out to there and be like, I'm sorry it's taking so long. I'm sorry this is wrong. That
is how we met. That is how we met.
What happened?
James was walking the room as he does. I was with my wife Emily, and we were sitting there having dinner. I think it might have been your first week or 2 weeks, and everyone was raving about this place that I knew downtown. So we tried it out, and you were walking around the room, and I told you my feedback, and instantly you were changing everything, fixing it. And
what was your feedback?
I think the puttanesca was too spicy.
It was whatever it was. I don't know exactly, but you were on the spot, walking the room, and I think an interesting conversation is how much time do you still, given the success of it, spend in the kitchen versus managing the business of it?
I love my time in the kitchen. It's usually in the mornings, and I try not to get in the way of the team. Like, my goal now is to get my chefs to start creating the menu completely. So they still need a little nudging because they can get into the minutia of the day-to-day, but bringing in new products and showing them new techniques and really kind of like building off of the foundation that we've built over the last few years has been great. But now I'm at the point now where I'm like, okay, guys, what's the new chicken? What's the new porchetta setup? What's the new this? Because I want them to be taking care of it and growing, and I'm giving them all the books and all the information. And now it's like, well, we did this last year, so we don't want to do that last year, so let's change it like this. And now we can have a real conversation about where the menu goes, and it goes forward. It goes forward very much like Italian food, very slowly, because if we make radical changes or we go too modern or we get too chefy, then all of a sudden it's not Esther's, because Esther's still has to retain soul. It has to retain a whole bunch of different like intangible things to the food that help elevate the experience, because it's not as simple as just like pasta on a plate.
Absolutely, yeah. Is there anything in the area of the Arts District that you're most excited about? I know they just opened the 63 residential units at Share.
Yeah.
The Tacotarian opened up just before the pandemic, I guess. Well, maybe it was a little bit before.
No, a little bit before, yeah. They're doing good.
The pandemic feels like it's been 30 years, so it's hard to it's hard to know what came that far before it. But anything in that area that you're particularly excited about? I know you're repping a Good Pie hat today. Yeah,
absolutely. So and Vinny is and Vincent and Main Street Provisions, and so Good Pie and Main Street are going to open up in the next month and a half.
Which they've been saying, by the way, for 6 months.
They've been saying that for a year. Yeah. But it was really just, I think where they're at now is we're looking at like probably another few weeks for Good Pie. Good Pie will open first, and that'll be great to have. Not only have a great slice joint, but have like a really great pizzeria and a really great person with Vincent Rotolo, who's just been like, he's always had my back. he's just a good guy. And, we started out hanging out in his backyard making pizzas out of his oven that he made out of a doghouse shell.
Wow.
Yeah. He built an oven in his backyard, and we would go over there and we would test recipes and test doughs. And I'd bring dough, and Michael Vecnine would bring dough, and Chris Decker would bring dough. So, and we would just get all these different pizza makers from all over the city, and we'd all bring dough and we'd all bring ingredients, and we'd just throw down pizzas in the oven, and we work the ovens, and it was a great time. And that's how we really got to know each other, and like that's how this pizza community in Vegas kind of came together. I was just kind of a fly on the wall and got to learn and work with those guys, and it was a lot of fun. And then he opened his spot over in Palm Plaza. He was with Evil Pie, and then he opened Good Pie, because nothing like a contrarian.
Evil Pie and Good Pie.
Yeah, right. And then, so now he's over Good Pie, and now he's opening his first full-service restaurant. And that is fantastic for him, and I'm so excited for him. The millwork on that bar is gorgeous. He's got a David Cooper behind the bar, who was at Other Mama, and so he's got a great bar manager there, so the cocktails are going to be great. And then next door you have Main Street Provisions with Kim Owens, who's the owner, and she basically built Del Frisco's.
Oh wow.
She's a badass chick, as I say.
Yeah.
And she knows her stuff.
It's a steakhouse.
It's gonna be kind of steakhouse-ish.
Yeah.
It's gonna have steaks on the menu, but it's more chef-driven, more community-driven. Have the amazing chef there, Justin Kingsley Hall.
Yep.
So Justin finally getting a place where he can.
He was at Atomic as well for a little bit, wasn't he?
Yeah, he started off at Sparrowed Wolf.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. He was like, I think I met him in LA when he was at Comsa. So he's also been around. He's from the San Luis Obispo area, and so for him to make his way to Vegas through LA, and then now for him to be able to feature some of his food on a menu is amazing, and to see how he's putting it together. He's just a really gentle, sweet spirit, and just caring and wonderful as a human being, and I want to see him succeed. And I really truly do believe that in the Arts District, like any upcoming neighborhood, like a rising tide lifts all boats. So to even in the pandemic see these restaurants kind of coming to fruition finally, and opening, and seeing these guys go from all the struggle of opening a restaurant, which is so not the funnest thing in the world, because you just literally learn what you don't know, and then to finally get open, I'm super excited for them, and I cannot wait to support them, and I cannot wait for our neighborhood to just kind of blossom as it has, because I really do see it as just being like, I might have been like the first guy there, but they're going to be so successful and so wonderful and such great people. And Vinny's like slice game to be like as a great accompaniment to all the bars at night is another amazing thing. We are just cannot wait for our neighbors to come, be open, be successful. Same thing with Tacotarian, like Regina and those guys have just been amazing neighbors to have. They've been so helpful with everything, and it's just like we're in this thing together, where so much of LA went from being this beautiful community to being so competitive, and I really don't miss the competitiveness of working in Venice, because you have some of the best restaurants in the world.
Yep.
Like steps from your doors, and you're fighting for a guest, and it's a local guest for the most part, because driving around LA is a train wreck. But in our comp set at Superba, we had you have the Rose Cafe with Jason Neroni, you have Evan Funky at Felix, you have
Justa.
Yeah, Justa, and Travis is no longer with those guys, but like Justa and Jelena and GTA, and then like Vartan moved in and opened up across the street, and and then you have the Tasting Kitchen with Casey Lane. Just literally just that much.
Exploded. Yep.
That's more good restaurants, let's be honest, than Las Vegas has total. Like crazy good, world-class, insane wine programs, done, every one of them unique, every one of them special, every one of them so cool. And we need more of that here in Vegas. And I love the classicness of like this room, and I love it. But like when we get down to like Main Street, and the locals coming to Main Street, which will become their neighborhood, that's where I'm going to see this amazing growth. I love it that like no one's opening an Italian restaurant. I love it that there's a slice joint, a pizzeria, and like a modern American kind of like steakhouse with like farm to table touches on it. I love that there's Nevada Brew Works is doing something different than everybody else. I love that April Baker is right there. I love that, I love that we're going to have barbecue pretty soon there, hopefully from my buddy Bruce. I'm really like excited for that neighborhood. And I'm excited for that neighborhood in so many different ways because there's so much land to develop there.
Right.
There's so many awesome opportunities. There's so many independent operators who really will have an opportunity to, and I think they're world-class operators who are coming from out of Vegas to come in here, and you're going to see that kind of spirit kind of like come back. And the next 10 years is like nothing but
upwards.
Upwards.
I agree.
I
with you.
love what you're talking about with the community of everyone working in the business, but also the community that you're creating for all the locals and everyone visiting the restaurants, and especially what you did during the when everything was shut down. The cooking at home that you did with Secret Burger was the highlight of my quarantine. Like, because I felt like I was part of a community and doing stuff with friends, watching your videos and cooking along with you, even though I was alone in my kitchen. But the sense of community that I felt, it was really incredible. And I do have to thank you for creating something like that.
Well, I mean, like, if we're going to look at like who inspired that stuff, I mean, like we have to look at like the pioneers. We have to look at, Mark Vetri and Missy Robbins and what they were doing with their groceries and all the different like kind of like larders that they were creating. My goal was just to package it so that way you could get food kind of from Esther's at your house, because I know that people like really treat Esther's as a community place, as a meeting place more than anything. And actually, it was Eric, myself, and my team kind of putting these menus together, and then Jolene had the perfect platform to work off of for that. And so we were completely blown away by how the community reacted to it, because it was more like a kind of like, hey, like there were a lot of people who had never eaten at Esther's who went and got those got those meals because their friends were telling about them, or they would go to their house and then they'd be like, what's this?
Yeah.
And then they get the next week, and then their friends would get the next week. And then my sister was doing Zoom meetings with her friends while they were cooking along to it. And they're like, wait, what's going on? And I learned obviously you can tell I talk fast. So talking fast, and I had to slow down and like wait for people. But like the really cool thing was if you did them week over week over week, we wanted to keep a formula, just like something I learned from television. You keep a formula from episode to episode, and people can follow along better. Like if you watch an Aaron Sorkin show for the first time, you're like, what the hell they say, right? But once you're in 5 or 6 episodes, you kind of get the dialogue. You get to see like how the episode is going to like play out, and that formula worked for the kits as well.
Yeah, so besides for the cooking classes, I guess a two-part question. One, what did you personally do during our quarantine? And two, how has it affected business since reopening? I know I was there on Memorial Day weekend, and it was busy, but we were all sitting outside with the tables that the city put out there, which was pretty cool. It
was cool, and they're going to redo that again for the Raiders game, so we're really excited about having.
Good.
But they're going to use a lot of the assets from Life is Beautiful that are not being used. They're going to basically close it down and create like a Life is Beautiful area right in front of Esther's. So we're super excited about that.
Just every weekend?
Every weekend. And I don't think they're going to break it down, so it might just be there all week, and then in which case it'll become our third dining room.
Yeah.
And so during the pandemic, well, the first thing that happened is I was literally right about to buy a house. Right, we talked about the house, and I was super excited about the house.
Right,
I didn't buy the house.
Oh no!
No, I'm super glad, because I could not have even imagined having that kind of liability during such an epic time of uncertainty.
Right,
because we didn't know like whether it was going to be 3 weeks or 6 months till we could reopen. I was on my way to go cook for Willie Nelson in Austin. I got to Austin, and actually got on a plane the next day and came back because they had canceled the festival that I was supposed to cook at, and they basically shut down Austin, so there was no place to drink in Austin, which then you're just in Texas, and that's awful, right? So flew back. Literally, my sister, I feel so bad for her. She flew out. We walked around 6th Street for about 2 hours, booked flights, and flew back.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was awful. Beautiful town, let me tell you. So we were there for a couple days, came back. The next day, we knew that we were going to get shut down. We had heard the rumors becoming true, and we had to go, called an all-staff meeting, and we had to basically furlough the entire staff, except the managers, who I kept on salary the whole time. And I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I know that, the thing about Esther's is the people are what make Esther so special. My first 2 hires were my best friend since I was 8 years old and my drinking buddy from high school. So, really, yeah. That's how,
Is that why you have on the menu by the cooks a round of drinks so you can all get...
Actually, it's just, that's a way to include the people in the tip pool. So, the prep cooks, the dishwashers, and the line cooks, it's just an added thank you from everyone who comes through the restaurant who appreciates the cooking. If you guys have an opportunity to drop a round of beers on the kitchen, we always yell at you when you do it. And we say thank you because it means a lot to us. And really just it was so hard to tell people who I'd made that promise to that we're going to take care of you, that you're part of a family here. And we did our best while we were shut down. So we would have family meal every day. So if you wanted to come in and have lunch with us, you could come in the back door. All the stuff was papered up, and we just were come in, eat, hang out with us. If you need groceries, if you need money, if you need anything, you let me know. I mean, I can't even tell you because so many people couldn't get through on the Dieter website and that train wreck.
They still can't.
Yeah, I was literally just handing out cash.
Yeah.
I was whatever it takes, man. You got to pay your rent, or if you're have some horrible, landlord who doesn't want to make a deal with you right now, you don't want to live there long term. So here, let's pay this guy and let's get it taken care of, and you're going to be all good. And or if you have a car note that you can't pay, we just took care of people.
That's great.
And then we literally emptied the fridges, cooked all the food. Did everything that we could not to waste any product, but to get in the hands of our family and our regulars. And we had people who were regulars who were just showing up and being do you have any bread or do you have any of this? And so what we would do is we would kind of people saw this. We would announce on Facebook hey, we're baking bread. If you want to come over, grab a loaf. Sure. And we did that not only to keep our starters alive and to keep our practice on it, but also just to create nourishment for the community.
Right.
And what we found was people were coming over and they were so happy to be just getting bread because we were yeah, just grab whatever you want off the rack. We didn't even think about it. They're started leaving money. And so they started leaving piles and piles of cash for the bread. And it wasn't $5. People were leaving $100.
Oh, wow.
And we were wow, this is freaking great. Right? Paid for the flour, right? But more importantly, what we did is we ended up taking that money and creating a fund for our staff. So if you needed something, we were there you go.
Yep.
Right? And we started doing that every week, and that became a thing where people were started texting me bread today, because we would make 60 or 80 loaves of bread and it would just be gone in 30 minutes. It'd be crazy. Yeah, it's it was nuts. It was here at noon, bam, and there'd be a line, a wonderfully socially distanced line of about 80 people wrapped around the building to just come in, grab their loaf. They're I need 2 because my friend can't be here. I'm yeah, dude. And we would just leave the thing there. We just kept about our business, and they just, grabbed the bread, and it was gone. It was gone. My sister hated it because she never got bread because I always forgot to give her a loaf. And
I should have been getting bread as well.
You should have
been coming by for bread.
Yeah, that's the move.
So since opening, I mean, I know it's busy because I come by often and grab takeouts usually. But how's it been for you? Has it been okay? I mean, have people been respectful of the sort of measures you've had to take to keep it all?
Well, I mean, the crazy thing is if you really talk about the measures we have to take, we're already so insanely on top of sanitization in restaurants for the most part. When we talk about sanitizing every table, one-use menus, we were already doing all this stuff. It's a little more intense on that end. The 6-foot rule We lost about 8 tables, but then we reclaimed a couple on the front patio. Miss Goodman was able to give us the okay on that stuff. The city helped out by creating the area in front of Esther's, which when it was not getting blown away by horrible winds was fantastic. And now we're just kind of settling into a good rhythm. Our staff is 100% back. Everyone who had a job, who wanted a job back, came back. Some people used the time to really focus on other projects and they decided to leave, but that was their choice. We were like, you have a job and we would really like to have you back, because we don't have any like B players. Like when you grade your players, when you talk about like who should be on the team, like we don't have any non-A players at Esther's.
Right.
Like every single person is special. Like every single person means something to the restaurant, and that's every server, every runner, every bartender, every manager, every cook, every dishwasher. Like everyone counts.
Right.
There's not like someone who's like, hey, yeah, welcome to the team. We're like, no, who are you? Where are you from? Get like a full riot of like where they're coming from, who they are, why they want to work at the restaurant. Like before you started Esther's, it's like, do you really want to be here? And then we give you a couple weeks and we've lost a few people, but once someone's in the restaurant, they don't want to leave because they just see that we're a big family.
Culture,
and,
yeah.
It's what it is.
So why do you think it is that so many restaurants are not going to reopen out of this? You're a leader in this community now.
There's so many reasons why restaurants aren't going to reopen. Number one is just like the cash flow of an independent restaurant is brutal. Right. So, we had been saving. Like I said, I was about to buy a house, right? Which means that I have a bunch of money just saved that I'm going to put down as a down payment. Awesome. Don't have to pay tax on it, right? That was the idea. Well, 3 weeks after that, when you have sales tax, when you have payroll, when you have all your vendor tails, which are like literally your leads out, your 28 days. Over that next 28 days, I washed $160,000 this beer. So we were almost in crisis mode after a month of the pandemic.
Right.
And that's when we were like, okay, well, let's see what we can do with these kits and keep everybody and just pay the payroll so we don't bleed out, right? Maybe we'll be able to pay half the rent. And they became such a success that I started bringing back cooks, dishwashers, front of the house people to pack everything. And you saw those little tiny containers. Those are all hand packed. It's not like you get like a thing of like Pacific Flake sea salt on your own, right? And so everything had so much detail to it that we really took pride in that. And the reason why a lot of people aren't going to come back is because there's just not money. Like, and then they're so worried about like the way you lose in a restaurant is death by 1,000 cuts, right? It's like, it's payroll, it's taxes, it's, licensing fees. It's all the stuff that, we still had to pay for our liquor license, even though we couldn't sell booze. We had to pay our rent, even though we couldn't be open. We literally have all these expenses that seem very small when you're running a restaurant and it's a good flow through and you're taking a certain small percentage from the bottom as profit. It's not like if you have to look at an independent restaurant as a business, it's insane.
Yeah.
We had a great July. We made 3%.
Wow.
Think about that.
Yeah, that's tough.
And we are one of...
Is that because of the bar being shut? Is that because of the reduced capacity?
Reduced capacity, everything. It's everything. And it's really because we are not in control of our own destiny right now. We can only do what we can do. We can only take so many reservations. We have to space out reservation times longer, so we can't do the cover count. And here's the other thing that no one's really talking about. There's 250,000 people in Las Vegas who are unemployed right now. And now we're seeing that, convention after convention after convention are not going to be returning. NFR is going to Texas. There's some brutal stuff happening out on the street.
I will tell you that of all the things that have happened to us in the last 6 months, and I do think that things canceling at this point isn't a big deal because it's to be expected, but I think losing NFR is the worst thing to happen to this city since the beginning of the pandemic.
I really, truly do believe that, and I really think that we will be able to get them back in 2021 because most of those people are already in Oklahoma, Colorado, Texas, and Wyoming.
Right.
They don't want to go to Texas.
Oh no, they're coming back.
Yeah, they're coming back.
They're gonna
Arlington.
realize how good they had it here every year with the entertainment and the food and the ease of everything. And it's.
I mean,
they're
our
coming back.
venues, the way Las Vegas is set up for something like that, with the amazing amount of venues. I mean, just like the Cowboy Christmas alone, is such like a big draw for it's a convention of its own that no one even thinks about. It brings in an extra $200 million, right? It's just the peripherals of that are brutal. So when I'm looking at as an operator, if I'm looking at Las Vegas and I'm betting on Las Vegas right now, it takes a really intense, technically business-focused person in order to find the way to make money right now. Because if you're doing the same things that you were doing 6 months ago, close. That's the thing is that is we're looking at restaurants in New York coming back next month at 25%, and everyone's like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm like, their other option, and their only other option is to close, because you can't have people out on the streets in New York City in December. That's not a thing.
It's crazy.
Right. And so we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when, things are going to be turning around. But I see the spirit of Las Vegas in our restaurant every single day. We see locals coming out, and they're putting their money in this little tiny restaurant, and we're trying to give them the best, bang for their buck and the best service and the best experience that we can give them at any cost. And we're taking on loads of extra servers and stuff like that to shrink sections to allow for better service. And we're changing our wine programming, and we're building a pastaio next door. We're building a pasta shop next door.
Next door, Esther's?
Yeah. So right next to Makeshift Union, we have that space, and we're going to put a retail pasta shop where you can come buy bread, stuff like that.
Oh, great. Good.
Yeah, maybe some ice cream, maybe some other fun stuff. And we're just going to create a grocery, and it's going to give us a little bit of extra space to breathe at Esther's as well.
Can you put your olives on sale, please? Because I'll buy them there.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing is the one thing that I've kind of noticed, and it's a very niche market, but in the time of pandemic, it seems like it's been something that's needed. I've been handing out flour to people, because people can't buy the flour that we use to make bread. They can't buy the flour to make pasta. They just can't. You can't go to Whole Foods and buy it. You can't go to Sprouts and buy it. So we're going to sell those things by the pound. And if you want lasagna sheets for you're making lasagna for the family, we'll come over and we'll give you 7 lasagna sheets and sell them to you that way.
Nice.
So stuff like that we want to do. It's more like a grocery outlet, another idea of how to use the things we do at Esther's in a way that can affect the community in a positive way, and give the people who are not really down for coming out to a restaurant yet an opportunity to get some of those things into their house that they may want, and that's important right now. It's just how are we going to take care of our community? Yeah.
So important. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing, and we can't wait to see what the future holds.
My lunch is here.
There you go.
My Esther's Kitchen lunch is here.
There you go.
You can learn more about Esther's Kitchen at www.esterslv.com or on Instagram at Esther's Kitchen LV. Thank you so much for joining us on the corner of Main Street.
Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. Guys, thank you.
We'll be back again soon, but in the meantime, please let us know how we're doing and send us your questions. Just email us at podcast@plazahotelcasino.com or go right to the top and tweet Jonathan at Jonathan Jossel. Also, please follow us on social media. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at Plaza Pod, and on Facebook, you can find us at Plaza Podcast. We'll see you next time from right here on the corner of Main Street.